So I think it's a bit of an understatement to say that luxury handbag prices of late have been rising faster than a SpaceX launch. It's a wonder that a Chanel handbag, like the classic flap or even Hermes, Birkins, Kellys and otherwise, can really cost an arm and a leg and probably your firstborn child to buy at this rate. And while we all universally agree that tens of thousands of pounds for a little trinket is an extortionate amount of money to pay, we can't help but still fawn over these items, and there are queues amongst queues of people waiting to buy these coveted handbags. And it's often a marvel, especially by naysayers of luxury goods, that people are willing to spend jaw-dropping price tags on handbags when in reality they cost a fraction of the price to make. What I wanted to talk about today is what the real cost of buying a handbag like that of Chanel or an equal fashion brand really is. And even for someone like myself, who is a self-professed luxury lover and Chanel bag addict, if you will, I am not naive to the fact that a lot of what sits behind Chanel pricing is not that they want to up the quality and craftsmanship of their items. No, it's all about the reputation, it's all about the prestige, and it's all about maintaining that value and mystique about the brand. And so with that being said, I think for a lot of people at this stage, they'll be wondering, well, if that's not the true cost of making that handbag, what actually is the cost? And of course, there is a degree to which you're kind of asking how long is a ball of string, because there are so many factors that will vary, like the product type, material, craftsmanship, and design. But a lot of media reports and outlets, especially even independent ones like that of Tanner Leatherstein that we're going to be talking about today, they actually speculate that the average cost of a Chanel handbag is that between about 200 to 500 pounds. Given that Chanel is a high-end luxury brand, its handbag price might be higher than that estimate, but it's certainly not in the tens of thousands of pounds that these brands are selling the products for. And I thought it would be really interesting, not just because I am a consumer of luxury, but I'm also a creator in terms of the content. And I feel like there is a duty of care when it comes to talking about luxury and potentially glamorizing it as a byproduct. We are making no bones about the fact that these prices are extortionate, that we acknowledge them, and that we also understand where critics will potentially just brushstroke this as just being reckless money, reckless spending, and a scam, that we also understand the inner workings of a brand so that we all get a better understanding of luxury. And so to help with the demystifying of luxury handbag prices, I thought I would throw up an article from the New York Post, which is particularly relevant. And in this article, they are taking a deeper dive into the individual that I've mentioned earlier called Tanner Leatherstein, that has really shot to fame in the last couple of years or so because he did what everybody was thinking about but didn't have the guts to. He basically cuts open luxury handbags. You know, he works in a tannery, so he's a leather expert, and he analyzes the makeup of certain luxury handbags or leather goods. And so he uses his experience as well as his observations of the item he is dismantling in front of him to arrive at certain estimates when it comes to labor, when it comes to materials, and ultimately what the final price of the luxury handbag would have been to make versus its actual listed price. So let me stop talking and let's actually go through this article, which will be the main focus of, I suppose, today's video. And the title is "I Set Designer Bags on Fire to Determine True Worth." And obviously do not attempt this, right? Because obviously it's dangerous, and also it is very foolhardy from a financial perspective to be setting your own bags on fire. So obviously you are seeing some startling images here of him in his studio burning some Louis Vuitton leather, as well as cutting up what is, I believe, a Bottega bag. So this article is obviously talking about a bit of background on Tanner Leatherstein, real name Volkan Yilmaz, and he's basically trying to help people understand and experience leather better. So now we see just one still of Tanner looking at a briefcase bag. I'm not actually sure of what particular brand that is or what model that is, but certainly if you scroll down there are a lot more obvious brands. Like this bag's from Polane, this one is from Louis Vuitton. Of course we have the Jacquemus with the Le Chiquito bag, and you know, my favorite, and then you have the Marc Jacobs tote bag. So he has a lot of videos where he is cutting open various luxury goods. He's even cutting open the Louis Vuitton shoes there. And I know a lot of people at this stage would say what he's doing is sacrilege, and my heart does hurt a little bit for the way that he kind of violently tears apart stitching of items and cuts into them, but he is a leather craftsman. He is an expert in his field, and this is the name of the game, right? And he's doing what all of us kind of really secretly want to know. The ones that I find personally very interesting are when he reviews higher tier brands that I personally buy from. So the Chanel's, he's done like a wallet on chain, he's done like vintage ones. He also does, I think, Hermes as well, and he's done Louis Vuitton. And obviously here he's burning Louis Vuitton leather because he understands there are certain like glazing and certain protecting agents that he wants to peel off and see if they actually stand up to scrutiny. And obviously, he is not blind to the fact that luxury goods are priced extortionately, primarily because of the name and reputation and whatnot. He also wants to make consumers very aware that if you are going to buy luxury, these are the brands that have the best leather, or at least you understand now how the sausage is made, kind of thing. And so if I scroll further down, he's dismantled a Louis Vuitton pochette that's gotten 1.8 million views, and that cost of production is roughly $110, whereas in comparison it's sold for a crazy $1,620. So yeah, they're making a bank on this one. Then he's done the Coach Tabby, which is still a low price of production but less extortionate in reference, so $65 to $395. But of course he is doing this because his videos are a kind of decision-making tool, right? They are empowering the consumer so that you know exactly what you are buying and if he believes it's worth it in terms of like a longevity perspective. And of course, as it pertains to my handbags, especially the Chanel bags that I have, because I have a lot of them from this particular brand, obviously in his reviews where he's cut open like wallet on chains and things, he's peeled back the glazing and he mentions that, they've covered it completely with loads of glazing and it just looks awful and it's compromising the actual natural beauty of the grain and things like that. That he's also mentioned the craftsmanship is not necessarily up to scratch, right, for the extortionate price tags. Even if the classic flap is a little bit more sophisticated in its construction, we all kind of get the idea that it's probably not going to be that much above £500 or £600 or dollars. I think a lot of luxury lovers are not blind to that fact, and if they are, I think that's a willing naivete, if you will. But I think what people forget to mention, and even with Tanner Leatherstein, he talks about labor and he talks about materials. Often a lot of these videos, a lot of other creators or media outlets, they forget or do not mention through omission that these price tags are not including costs of things like marketing, of resources, of transit, of distribution, of even like safety and security of these items, of the storefronts. Like, these all cost money. There are so many other costs that obviously we cannot quantify, right? Because Tanner Leatherstein, while he is a leather expert, he can only comment on the construction and sourcing of materials. He cannot comment on what it takes to operate a fashion or luxury powerhouse. So you aren't just paying for the materials, you're right. You're paying for the whole operating overhead of a business like Chanel. I think people often forget that, and it's very easy instead to just proclaim with just the limited headline that luxury is a scam and you're just paying for the name. And while that is true to a degree, it's a bit reductionist to say that, because there are a lot of other things that you're paying for. Same when you go to a restaurant, you might find the menu items to be unreasonably priced, but then you have to realize that you're not just paying for the burger, you're paying for the lights that are above your table, you're paying for the furniture, you're paying for the staff that are waiting on you, you're paying for the gas, the electricity that the kitchens are operating. There are so many other things that you are paying for, and brands are not charities, especially not in the luxury realm where they're selling you a dream. It wouldn't be a dream if your items were $50 in comparison, right? Because you would automatically not associate that kind of price tag with that of being luxury. So it feels like it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because if these brands were to lower the pricing, okay, they might appeal to a broader audience, but that's not where their target audience is, and they'll alienate the people that are the big spenders that have affinity to the brand. And conversely, if they raise their prices a lot, just to protect the brand, to make sure that they are considered still as investment, then you get a lot of feedback from people who find the brand to be aspirational, who are trying to save up for items, and they find them to be greedy. And so it just feels a bit like a lose-lose for luxury brands, especially in this niche that is obviously so polarizing by the nature, especially in today's world. But, I wanted to add that extra context because I don't think a lot of people consider it, and they just think luxury brands are being greedy. And I'm not saying that two things can't exist at the same time, but I think that it's really important as a luxury consumer and creator myself to share this perspective, because people often forget that brands are not charities, that they have to somehow keep the lights on. And yes, the cost is being passed to consumer, whether that's right or wrong is something that is a personal perspective of yours, but they're not just pricing it because they feel like being extortionate, right? They have a business strategy. They know how far to push it before it becomes a bit unreasonable for their core audience base. And for brands like Chanel and Hermes, they really understand that pricing is a big sticking point in ensuring which one is on the top spot. They're always vying for the top spot. Chanel's price increases are arguably, outpacing Hermes, so that they get that kind of brand prestige, that they take this top spot for the most classic or highly coveted handbag. Pricing is a very important differentiator in the luxury experience. And if you price too low, you will not be considered luxury anymore, or at least higher tier. And if you price too high, you'll potentially alienate as well. I might not agree, and I won't like that there are price increases, especially if you're not getting quality increases, right? I understand why they're doing it. You're paying not just the name, but you're paying for the lights to be kept on. And you're also paying for the fact that, if you take into consideration the recent context of, having a global pandemic, there were losses made. There was also increasing in the cost of living, of raw materials. Someone has to pick up that cost. They cannot just continually absorb these hits, right, on their bottom line. They've got to recoup it somehow. And even outside of those, keeping the lights on costs, there are also costs that they need to cover when it comes to future planning. So they need to invest in new areas of the business that will create growth. They need to be able to innovate. They need to create new products, new collections all the time, especially with a brand like Chanel. I mean, I believe they are one of the biggest luxury brands that have the most collections throughout the year. It's not just spring, summer, autumn, winter. They have pre-fall, pre-spring, summer. They have so many collections from like ski and swim in between. They're literally churning out collection almost, I swear, every other week, it feels like. So many variations as well in terms of geography, and they've got to be doing this all the time. So there are a lot of costs that go into maintaining and, differentiating themselves from other brands to be competitive, to have that kind of brand awareness where you're always considered front of mind for a customer. That takes a lot of work. That's a concerted effort, and that costs money. It's not just as easy as, I'll price the bag just for as much as it's made. You've also got to pay for the future. You've also got to contingency plan for that. And that, while I don't agree, should be 10x or almost 20x the initial price of what it takes to construct a bag, I do believe that it will be a significant cost that people are just not aware of. Because when we think of luxury, we think of Chanel almost brainlessly. That took a lot of effort to arrive at that place where Chanel is at the kind of core, the epitome of what luxury is. People will still at this stage not believe in the exaggerated costs of the bags and, other luxury goods, right? They'll still say production costs might be over exaggerated, marketing costs or operating costs will be overinflated, and they're just exploiting consumer perceptions about the brand. They're exploiting people's loyalty. But I think even with that being said, and that being a personally held conviction, that even individuals like Tana Leatherstein, even other kind of media outlets, they will acknowledge that there are significant costs involved in marketing. They have harnessed successfully the psychological factors that drive luxury consumption, which are directly tied to the marketing, the pricing, etc. And they have created a brand that has prestige. And that is a hard thing to do. It takes a lot of time and money. And obviously that needs to be maintained, not by dropping the prices of things, but by continually maintaining or increasing them. And I suppose another element that helps with this is the kind of psychology of luxury consumption, which I have talked about innumerate times on my channel, so you can go ahead and peruse those videos. But, there are factors like the Veblen effect, which is basically having prestige associated with high prices. There's like bandwagoning effect, where you basically want to jump on the societal norms that people are on to stay relevant and cool. And those are directly correlated with the fact that they are exclusive and they are priced outside of what would be regular goods. So of course, luxury brands, if they are smart, they will strategically leverage these psychological factors to maintain their allure and their demand. And that has to do with pricing items outside of what they're actually constructed for. People don't like this, but something is only luxury if the grand majority of people cannot have it, or it's not so easily acquired that it's exclusive, that it took a little bit of a game perhaps to acquire. They ultimately symbol trophies. They are symbols of where you are in life. And I think it manifests itself with the fact that there are so many detractors of luxury. They actively seek out, especially in my case, I've noticed it in my personal life, they actively seek out these accounts, they actively seek out luxury brands to share their disdain or whatever. when they actually are inherently having a fascination with luxury. So I think they're just a bit salty. They can't have it, but that's just an opinion of mine. But it just indicates the sophistication, the psychological sophistication behind why people buy luxury. And of course, even if something is extortionately priced, even if reason and logic tells you that it's not worth the materials that it's made from, there is still a deep-rooted psychological, emotional motivation to buy luxury, and the appeal of the exclusivity and prestige is still irresistible, and it has been for centuries. You know, there will always be something, whether it be a handbag or something, or a stick of gold, perhaps, that will attract a certain demographic of individuals who want to differentiate themselves, and they will continue to do so. And that's why Chanel has been relatively unaffected by price increases, but they inherently understand that the allure of the brand is in raising its prices, and it's not to do with the actual cost of production, it's to do with the brand in itself. And so, yes, of course, you will see a discrepancy between production costs and retail prices, but you cannot miss, first of all, the operating overhead that it takes to run a brand, but also the psychological factors that influence consumption, especially luxury consumption. So despite revelations about the markups, despite the videos of Tana Leatherstein taking part these goods and showing us the truth behind luxury goods, but really it is a much more nuanced conversation around luxury and being informed around what you are buying into. And it's too simplistic to say because the production costs do not correlate with that of the actual retail costs, that it therefore must be a scam. For some people it might be, especially if you don't have luxury on your radar, it's not of interest to you, but for those that are interested, for them it is worth it. For them, they understand what they are paying for and they still want to go ahead. Fine, people are adults. People will spend their money how they want to. People don't give enough credit to luxury consumers that they are aware what they are spending their money on is frankly extortionate for some, but they do it anyway because they like the brand, they like the item, they like the exclusivity, they like how it makes them feel, they like the value that it has, they like that they can use it to celebrate a milestone. There are so many other reasons why people buy into luxury, as well as the fact that brands in themselves need to keep the lights on somehow, especially to maintain that air of exclusivity and to maintain the dream that they're selling. And I don't think it's wrong to buy into a dream. I think in today's world, we have to do things all the time that are just purely for utilitarian purposes. But I think having a little outlet, escape from reality, if you will, a nice trinket here and there, there's nothing wrong with that. There's so much judgment around people who love luxury and feel that people who love luxury are idiots or, you know, being scammed, that I think people remove that agency from individuals who buy luxury and that they are perfectly aware of what they're spending their money on. But everybody has their own thing, and for those people, luxury is their thing. That is certainly my thing. Just wanted to put this video out there to get your thoughts as well. Leave them down in the comments below if you'd like to share, but I will leave this video right here. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll catch you in my next one.